Thanks for staying with us. Continuing our discussion, I'll turn again now to Jeremy Saltan, advisor for the Yamina Party. Amir Weitmann used the word stolen. The Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, has said the greatest election fraud in the history of the country. Your response to this allegation that Naftali Bennett has broken promise after promise, he has misled his voters who would never have agreed to this kind of coalition, and that this is kind of an illegitimate government. Your reaction?
You know, we're doing what we said we were going to do, and I'll just say that it's rich coming from the person who said you can never sit with Gantz, you can never be with the Labor Party, and of course the current government that we're replacing was one that was going to make Benny Gantz prime minister after he said he was incompetent and even said that he might not even be with all of his marbles. Okay, and might be a security threat because of Iran hacking into his cell phone. And yet he made this person prime minister. Of course, the Labor Party led by Amir Peretz, he was happy to bring him in. In terms of us and what we said to our voters, we had two primary campaign promises. Number one was that Naftali Bennett was running to be the prime minister of the state of Israel. And the second one was that we were going to do everything possible to go ahead and prevent a fifth election. We're able to go ahead and look all of our voters in the eyes and say that we've been able to fulfill those two campaign promises. There were secondary ones that we made when it gets to, you know, how do you go ahead and do that? Look, Meretz is going to be part of this coalition. We said that we would not, you know, have them be a part of this coalition. They're going to be a junior member of this coalition. They're not getting anything that we consider substantial. This government is going to be more right-wing than the previous one because of the way that it's been set up, because of the fact that Lieberman is going to be on the Lapid side of the government.
But just logically, Jeremy, how can you say this government will be more right-wing when you have the Islamist, anti-Zionist Ram Party and the Meretz Party as part of this coalition? How can it be more right-wing? What more right-wing positions will...
You have three different things to look at. One is, for sure, among the Knesset members themselves, the right does not have a majority. The way we set up the government and the cabinet is that the New Hope and Yamina ministers are going to have a weight that is equal to that of the other parties on the other side. That means when, for instance, Ayelet Shaked votes for or against something, that will be worth 2 or 3 votes, as opposed to a Yesh Atid or a Meretz minister that only gets 1. And then in the security cabinet, we have a built-in right-wing majority. So if you're measuring this up against the previous government, both in the security cabinet and both in the cabinet, you see now an increase of the right-wing representation. Now, I'm not saying this is a right-wing government. It's not. This is a unity government. But I'm saying that this is 10 degrees more to the right than the government that we are replacing. It's very easy to look at the legislative branch and the composition of the MKs, but what matters when it comes to the government, the executive branch, is what is happening in terms of the voting powers of the cabinet itself, and of course the security cabinet, where you have the most sensitive things going on.
Protections, built-in protections there within the coalition deal. Amir, your reaction, your thoughts here?
Well, in principle, traditionally speaking, the Likud and the national religious parties are allies. This is how it has been most of the time since 1977. But I have to, and sometimes the Likud made government without the national religious parties, and sometimes national religious parties went into the government without the Likud. It happened under Ehud Barak, for instance. But I have to say, I don't remember any time ever that we saw this level of fraud, deceit, and lies coming from anybody who even pretends.
This is ridiculous. Bennett said he was running for prime minister.
To the national religious.
Bennett never endorsed Netanyahu.
I did not interrupt, and I let you talk, so please do. So in any case, the reality is, first of all, in the best of cases, yes, in the government, there will be a deadlock, in the best of cases. But the reality is that a government is based in a parliamentary majority, the democracy is based on the coalition. And the coalition has got 12 right-wing members with 39 left-wingers, or even Arab anti-Zionists, in some cases terrorist supporters, members. This is unprecedented ever in the history of Israel. And because, politically speaking, Bennett has got essentially nowhere to go back to, he essentially himself is not part of the right wing anymore. It's obvious to anybody with a little bit of sense that he's already looking for the next step, which is probably to become some sort of a new Kadima, new left to center, right to center party, which is going to try to rebrand itself. So in reality,
these are ridiculous,
going to be very
ridiculous allegations.
Right, I want to hear Jeremy's response here.
Naftali Bennett is the same guy, and he's living up to his primary campaign promises after having 4 campaigns over the last 2 years in which there was so much hatred that was sent by all sides against everywhere. We are in real danger of having a 5th election and having that stir the pot to the point of an explosion. You need time between each election to allow the flames to come down for us to heal as a nation. And specifically because of the diversity that we have in this coalition, I believe that we'll be able to do that. Naftali will be able to do that, and he will be doing that from the right.
All right, and complete roll and coverage, of course, of the Knesset swearing-in ceremony and the first speeches in the Knesset here on I-24 News on Sunday. So stay tuned for that. Amir Weitmann, Jeremy Saltan, thank you both so much for being part of this discussion here on the Zoom In Show.